Mommy is dead, Hugo. You'll never see her again. Go away! Hugo, no! Leave me alone.
Don't take too long.
I hate you. It's for your own good, Hugo.
I'm sorry, I'm sick.
They've come back. Everything is alright.
Okay, well, that all sounded pretty harrowing, didn't it? I know I'm a little bit late to the party with the play to Innocence. It was one of those games that just seemed to sort of come out of nowhere really, quickly gained traction amongst gamers and critics, and so because of that, roughly 3 years later and just before the sequel drops, I thought I'd give it a bash, ramble on about it for a while and give you my thoughts. Right from the outset I knew it was going to be a great game when in the first 10 minutes the game touched me a little bit close to home and punched me right in my f***ing feel sack.
My dog. Who did this?
Disturbing doggy deaths aside, A Plague Tale Innocence takes place in 14th century France during the 100 Years' War, a time in history when the English and the French were essentially in a dispute over who had the right to the French throne, and from what I've read on Wikipedia, it basically went like this.
I, the undersigned, shall forfeit all rights, privileges, and licenses herein contained, etc., etc. Memo bis punitor delicatum. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal, so you get nothing.
And as if that setting wasn't enough to get you moist under the collar, as the name suggests, it's also a period of time where a great plague is decimating the land, and there's just millions of rats just casually knocking about trying to make your life hell. Moving on from the game's grim background, you play as Amicia, a resourceful young woman who is quickly forced into the role of protector/mother figure to Hugo, the game's other main protagonist. Initially, I thought this dynamic was going to become tiresome. I was a bit worried it might turn out to be a monotonous escort mission. However, turns out this is the game's strength. I thought Hugo was an absolute legend. His innocence and kind-hearted nature was infectious. Mix that with Amicia's pragmatism and the fact that she's never interacted with Hugo much up until this point means there's some really impactful story moments, and you really see both characters start to develop and change throughout their journey.
Mummy used to say that monsters are just those things too.
Just those things to which we have never given a name. She told me that too.
I would quite like to see a monster actually.
As you might expect, this dynamic is reflected in the gameplay. You'll often have to chuck Hugo over a wall, give him a piggyback, or have him stay in a specific spot and come back to you, etc, etc. I thought Asobo Studio really did a good job of making you feel vulnerable and weak compared to the enemies around you. It gave me a sort of Hulk versus man feeling, especially since the characters go down in one hit.
Is that all you got?
You aren't completely defenseless, however. Throughout the game, Amicia will level up her survival skills, which comes in the form of other character interactions or upgradable equipment. At your disposal, you have a trusty sling, which has a very satisfying weight and feel to it. When you clock an enemy in the face, you really feel the impact of the blow. There's also a host of alchemy-based throwables that you can use to affect your surroundings. More often than not, this meant taking advantage of the rats in the area by knocking out a light source, which would then send a swarm of rats taking out a soldier. On the other hand, the criticism I do have of the game is that there was no open-ended encounters in larger spaces, thus giving me the freedom to choose. I only ever felt like there was one, maybe two solutions to a given scenario. It'd have been cool if I was able to take a slightly more aggressive approach or a stealthy one, and because of this, I never really felt like I needed to take full advantage of all the equipment available to me. This extends out to the other side of the gameplay, which is largely comprised of solving puzzles in the dark. The goals of these puzzles usually being get from point A to point B by moving rats out of your way. None of these were particularly demanding, which meant the game could move along at a brisk pace, but on the flip side of that, due to the simple nature of the puzzles, they felt a little uninspired and overused the further I got into the game.
Abrasia, let's see if I can light it.
So we can get the rats to move.
Lucas, Hugo, stay out of the rain. We'll open up a path to the tower.
Now, it would be remiss of me not to mention the graphics in this game. They are straight up f***ing fantastic, and they have me staring at them like... I can't lie, I get really excited about small details in games, and in this particular one, it was the lighting that was impeccable, from creating atmospheric sense of dread to smaller details which I absolutely buzzed off, like reflecting light off soldiers' armours. I mean, just look at it! It's so good! And I'm going to keep going on this. The environments looked absolutely sick on this, with a surprisingly varied amount, starting out in a vibrant, colourful town area, which then transitions into a darker, more foreboding landscape filled with death and decay, All this really helping me to feel immersed in 14th century France. Again, I'm going to pick up on a flaw here and point out that there were some weaker character animations in this, specifically noticeable in some of the cutscenes. You could tell that the movements were a little bit more janky and robotic, but overall they did a fantastic job.
You have no idea how I have suffered. Look what I endure for you.
Overall then, I thought A Plague Tale Innocence was an amazing game, and I'm excited to see what they do with the second. I can see the areas for improvement, particularly with enemy encounters, providing gamers with a bit more freedom to choose and tackle a given scenario, a little bit more variety with the puzzles, and some graphical improvements, and they'll have something really solid. If you're someone like me that enjoys narrative-driven, single-player games, and this is definitely worth a look, I would personally give it a pretty mint out of 10. But that's just one guy's opinion. Let me know what you thought of A Plague Tale Innocence in the comments section down below. That being said, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Over there.
Those aren't soldiers.
We have to get out of here.
What were they doing?
Those were looters, looking for things to steal.
But why?
To survive, probably. Like us.